Hello, my name is Christina Lee, and today I'm going to be showing you how to create this mandala. Before we get started, I wanted to thank my Patreons for your support. If you're interested in supporting my work and getting exclusive content, you can go to the link down in the description. I also want to invite you to follow me on social media, especially my Facebook group. We have over 12,000 followers currently, and it's just a bunch of different dotting artists that come together, and we love to share our work with each other. You can also find that link in the description. If you're watching this video, perhaps you purchased this kit that goes along with this video that includes the paints and the tools that you need to create this piece. Before we get started, I'm going to go over and talk about the different items that you receive in your kit and show you how to use everything in it. So this is the piece we're going to be creating today, but before we start, I wanted to go over all the materials that come inside of the kit. I've wanted to do something like this for a very long time because I feel like when I first started dotting, there were so many different options out there and it was really hard to decide exactly what to get, and I ended up purchasing a lot of things that I never really used or weren't actually useful in starting dotting. So the first thing that is included is a canvas that is already prepared with gesso. If you decide you want to move into creating more pieces and with like a black background, I prefer the Liquitex black gesso. It's a really high quality. A bottle is going to last you a really long time, and it's absolutely worth the investment. This is a radial dotting, a radial stencil, and I'm going to show you how to use this in a minute, but these are really great if you especially have a hard time keeping spacing. I'm going to teach you how to really keep your spacing nicely. I use them in all my work, and I love it. So I love these types of stencils. The next thing you're going to receive are these Rod acrylic dotting tools. These are really nice for making different size dots, and you can see just what they look like on the ends here. They're very straightforward, very simple, and we're going to be using some of those in this piece. And then I also have a set of ball stylus dotting tools, and I think it's really important to have a set of these in your dotting practice. They're really great to use for making smaller dots. If you're going to be walking dots, I'm going to show you how to do that, what that even means here in this tutorial. And if you see some of my other work, I actually prefer using ball stylus over the flat rods, and I'll talk more about that in a little bit. But what you're going to receive are on one side of the dotting tools, they're going to be, they're all going to be different sizes, tips, and then on this side they're all the same size. So it's not necessary to have so many different size dotting tips. As long as you have a big one, a medium one, and a small one, you're good to go. The next thing you're going to receive in your dotting toolkit is a watercolor pencil. I learned early on that if you use a watercolor pencil, it's actually very easy to erase your stencil lines. Like in this example, I just finished this one last night, and so since I used a watercolor pencil, the stencil lines are very, very simple to erase. Just get a little water and a Q-tip, and it comes right up and that stencil line disappears. So I'm going to be showing you a little bit more of that in a little bit. Okay, and I also do include some Q-tips, but or cotton swabs, and you can probably have more of those around your house. Last but not least, I have included some paints. These are DecoArt metallic. They are dazzling metallics. These are incredibly perfect for starting dotting painting. You can also use a DecoArt Americana brand. These two, they're the same brand, but this one's a metallic and this one is just an acrylic paint. You can use these two. They're perfect right out of the bottle, and you don't have to worry about the paint consistency. That was one of the biggest issues that I had when first starting dotting, is figuring out the right brand of paint to use and the paint consistency. If you continue with this practice over time, you will want to branch out and try different types of paint that maybe are a little thicker or a heavy body paint, and those are really fun to play with, but I would encourage you to start with these because they're just ready to go. Okay, so let's get started. I did fail to mention that you're gonna need a ruler for the first part just to find the center of the canvas. And there's two ways you can do this. You can measure out, this is a 6-inch canvas, so you just cut that in half and find your 3 inches. My cat's knocking on my door. And then we're just gonna connect those lines. I don't need to go all the way to the end, but you can see what I did there. And then we're gonna do that again. And basically we're gonna put a plus sign right on the canvas. Just like that. So now what we can do is we're going to take this stencil and we're going to line that intersection up right with that dot, and then we can also, these straight lines here, we can also line up those lines as well, and that's how we're going to get it perfectly centered on the canvas. Okay, I gotta go let my cat in. Okay, so I've got the lines up here and across. So now I'm just gonna fill in the rest of the lines. And the stencil that I have is, it's gonna require a little bit of a sharper pencil lead. So as your pencil comes, that should be just fine. And you don't have to press hard when transferring. You just want enough pencil lead to transfer so you can see the lines. We don't want to go too crazy, just very light and gentle. And also I'm using a yellow color, but you might get a slightly different color of pencil. I had to buy a 24 pack and they were all different colors, so they all work. And we're just going to draw all the lines. So far, pretty easy. Okay, so now for the big reveal. And that's what yours should look like. So I'm just gonna lightly kind of dust it off. Sometimes the pencil will leave a little bit of a dust down and that can interfere with your paint a little bit, but we're pretty much good to go. Okay, so we're gonna start with the teal color that comes in your kit. And when you open these, make sure you open them not sideways because the paint's gonna spill out. Okay, and so as we get started, we're gonna start with the green one. This is your largest tool. And when you dip your paint, you're not gonna dip it all the way down. You're just gonna dip it so it just barely covers the tip. So just about that much. And you can see on the bottom, it's kind of like a little dollop of paint. You can see there is an air bubble on there. I'm actually gonna pop that. I kind of am obsessed with popping air bubbles, and you'll find out over your career of dotting, you're gonna find a lot of those. So some people, it doesn't bother them. So you can see how there's just a little bit of paint on there. You can actually take time and roll that around and then just watch how that paint kind of starts to want to drip after a few seconds. That's the consistency that you're looking for. You don't want it to be too drippy. You don't want it to be like a peak that just kind of hangs out and it doesn't want to drip. This is the consistency that you want to look for in a paint. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and center that right on my cross section. And I don't want to push all the way down. I'm just going to get real close to the canvas. and you can see it kind of pushing out right past there. So we just created our first dot. That's gonna flatten out some, and I'm gonna show you what happens when it flattens out. It's gonna create this line, this little round line, and that's okay. Absolutely okay. And you can also see the bumps here. If you don't like the bumps like that, you can play with it. You can actually add a little more paint. And this could be like if you want to make another one, and you can try it this way, just to get a feel for it. You're just basically adding paint to it. And the nice thing about this paint is it will kind of spread out and settle as it dries. Here, just like that. So that'll give you a nice little textured bump. Okay, a couple things before we go on. These containers are okay to leave the lid off unscrewed, but just go ahead and just kind of put the cap back on it so the paints won't dry out so quickly. And these paints will probably last you 1 to 2 pieces like this. So if you really like this work, if you like doing this, then you can definitely go out and purchase more paints. I think the bottles, the metallics, and the Deco Art Americanas are like $2 to $3 a piece. So pick out a couple of your favorites and try some more. So what I'm doing now is I am cleaning off my dotting tool as my cat is drinking my water. This cat's gonna be naughty. Okay, so this is just a napkin. You can use an old rag, but I just want to clean all that paint off because it can build up over time. And I would be ashamed to show you some of my dotting tools because they're messy. The next color we're gonna do is the gold color. This is kind of a copper and this one is a gold, so we're gonna do the gold. Okay, and this time we're gonna use a ball stylus. We're gonna use, actually we're gonna use the blue one, I'm sorry. We're gonna use the big size of the blue one. And what we're gonna do is how you scoop the paint out of this is just very gently. You're not putting it in too deep, and you're just scooping up a little, kind of a ball of paint on that. You don't want a whole lot, you don't want it dripping, but you do want to cover the ball stylus. So now we're gonna place a dot. You wanna make sure when you're placing this, you're not gonna touch the blue paint, so I would space it just slightly above, giving enough room for that paint to spread a little. Just like that. So you're leaving a little tiny gap in between, and this is the part that's gonna take some practice. When you are learning a new skill like this, you have to get used to and kind of understand how your paint behaves. And this is part of it. This is a big part of dotting, is knowing when you place a dot down, what is that dot gonna do? Is it gonna spread? Is it gonna run into the other dots? So this has taken 3 years of practice for me, so if it doesn't look exactly like mine, that's okay. And my dots even still touch sometimes. And you know what? When a mandala is finished, you can never tell, and you can't even see it. So we're just placing this on our grid. Keeping those dots lined up. If they're a little bit different sizes, that's okay. That's what makes the mandalas, hand-painted mandalas, unique and just beautiful, is that slight irregularities in all of the dots, I think. Okay, so that's our gold. I just took this and wiped it off. Okay, so the next one is gonna be this silver color. That's gonna be our next dot. And that was with Let me find the right dotting tool. Okay, it's gonna be with this blue dotting tool here. And we're gonna go in with the silver. And this is gonna be just like with the big green dotting tool that we used at the beginning. We're gonna just get the tip of it with paint on it. Can you guys see that? Is it blurry? So it's kind of nice and rounded. So we're gonna actually place it right in that intersection, right here. But we're gonna stagger it every other. So we're gonna start at the top. And I'm not touching the dotting tool to the surface. I'm just getting really super close. Okay, let's see if I can show you me dipping it. We're gonna go right here. Oops. See if I can get this to focus. Right here, right in that cross section, and you're really focusing on control of your dotting tool, of putting pressure, just the very slight pressure to transfer the paint. Instead of pressing down really hard and really fast, you're focused on steady hand control. And this is the part of the meditation, I think, where it comes in, where you're really focusing the mind on just that one thing that you're doing right now. You're just transferring the paint. If you press your tool all the way down, it's going to make your dot bigger. And so that's the consistency that will be really helpful in the dotting tool size and having control over the pressure that you're applying. We're going to go back with that blue size. So we're going to do the same thing we did with the gold. We're going to scoop just enough that we have this ball of paint on the tip. So what we're going to do is we're going to apply this just a little bit further, just a little bit of a gap like we did with the gold, like that. So it's kind of resting in between the silver and this line, this intersection here. And at any time, if you feel like I'm going too fast, you can always pause the video and work at it at the pace that you need to go. So this white one, you've got a little bit smaller of a size and a little bit larger size. We're going to use the larger size on this. And you're going to scoop the paint up just like we did. You don't have a whole lot on here. And this, we're going to be a little flexible in how we walk the dots. Actually, I scooped a lot up, probably about that much. Let's see how we do. So it looks like it's pretty close to the same size as the first dot, but we're just gonna step down those dots. We're just gonna keep placing the dots around the big dot. And every time you place a dot down, it's putting down a little bit more paint, so there's a little less paint on your dotting tool. So this is great practice for walking dots. So I got 5 over here, 6 over here. It's rare that I can get them all the same all the time, so visually just go ahead and fill in those gaps. Oh, by the way, I'm left-handed, so most of you are probably right-handed. So you'll be doing the opposite, turning it the opposite direction. It's a little bit different view. Okay, next we're going to come in with this copper color. I'm going to use the purple size of the flat end there. Once again, we're going to just dip so there's just enough on that tip there. So we're going to go right in between here. My aim is to get this copper, like the top of the dot, no further than this. So it's going to be like right in this section right here. You can see that. Just right on that line. Just like that. Whoops. And that dot, it came down a little squishy, like not really, it's a little textured. So you can leave it, it'll dry just fine, but I like to sort of straighten that out a little. That's giving me kind of a horseshoe shape. Okay. See how it's like leaving a horseshoe shape? It's got a little horseshoe on the end there. And just add a little more paint. When I first started out doing this, I got a lot of horseshoe shapes, so it's not you. That's normal. I still get them. I just, I know how to correct them now. See, I got another one. A little, I call it the horseshoe. So I'm just going to add a little more paint to my dotting tool. And it just takes it away. That can happen sometimes if you get too close to the surface of the canvas, or if you don't have enough paint on your tip. So now we've used all 5 colors. I'm going to go back in with the blue, and we're going to do 3 dots. I'll show you what I mean. 1, 2, 3. And I want you to know that you don't have to follow my color palette. You can do whatever you want. If you've got different paints and you don't have these in your set, or maybe you're creating this without purchasing the set, you can just replace the 5 colors with any colors you want. Okay, we're going to start with the green on the large size. This is your largest dotting tool, ball stylus. And again, we're going to scoop that paint up, and you can see it's just kind of like a ball hanging on the end there. And we're going to get close to that crimson, kind of in that cross area, and we're just going to walk up 3. So we're just resting our 3rd dot right below this intersection here. So if you can kind of visually space that. And you can tell this one I didn't pick up as much paint as I did there. That's okay. Uh-oh, I made a boo-boo. What happens when we make boo-boos? I'm going to show you. So this is where the Q-tips come in handy. And you're just going to take a little bit of water and get the tip of that Q-tip wet. And I'm just going to wipe that up. I'm going to be really careful. Try not to touch my other dots. I'm going to use the other side of that Q-tip with some water. And pull that up. I did touch that other dot. It's okay. Okay, so you want to let that the water dry, and then we can come back and add that last dot. I'm not much of a fanatic about being perfect. I know some people can be, and that's okay. It's just your style. But if it bothers you that there's a little bit tiny residue left over here, what I do sometimes is I can take an old paintbrush, a small paintbrush, and get the tip of that wet. And you can kind of brush around that, and it will pull up the rest of the residual paint that's left on there. You can also take some black paint and just touch that up too if it's too dry. So we're gonna let that dry and then we'll come back. I do want to talk about these kinds of Q-tips. These are pointed Q-tips that are different than the regular Q-tips. I guess they're cotton swabs. Anyway, so these actually are really nice if you're working on a very detailed piece. Like if I did something and I smudged, I can actually come in with this, with the wet part, and I can clean that up a little more detailed than trying to get this thing in there, you know what I mean? So if you're finding that you love dot painting, you might want to consider, I just got a bunch of these on Amazon, or I don't know where you can find them otherwise, but these are really nice to have too, and they also don't shed the cotton strands like the other cotton swabs do. So these are just kind of nice to have handy sometimes. But this is dry, so let's go ahead and finish off our piece. I don't want to come back in here with the big dotting tool because it's going to leave a big dot. So I'm going to step that down just a little. Probably the white one is about the right size. And we're just gonna put that there like it never happened. Okay, next we're gonna use the gold, and we're going to use, every dotting tool here has got this size on it. So we're gonna use the other side. You can pick any color you want. This is the smallest dotting tip here, so we're gonna use the other side here. And we're just gonna scoop up that little bit of paint. And we're gonna place it right in the intersection if you've got the space, or if you don't, right above this copper dot. I am setting up to put in a bigger dot right above here. So this is kind of like I'm setting up a pedestal for that big dot that's coming. We're going to come in with a yellow dotting tool, yeah, and the crimson. I think this is berry, actually, a berry color, the red one. Okay, so we're looking for that same kind of rounded, just kind of play with it there. And we're gonna just try to sit that right on top of that gold. And I'm not applying too much pressure where I'm touching the canvas surface, but just enough to get that paint to transfer. And I'm coming straight down with that dotting tool. I'm not coming from the side because it will make your dot not round. So let's see if I can show you how I'm doing this. So I'm coming straight down and pulling just a little bit of paint up. And then I'm coming straight down. Just like that. Just take it slow. Got that horseshoe, so I'm gonna fix it. There we go. The next color we're gonna use is silver. Okay, so we're gonna take our large ball stylus, the green, and we're just gonna pick up some paint and we're gonna put it down right above the crimson or the berry, and it's right in between, you know, the edge of the berry and this line here. So this dot is just a little off-centered from the grid. So instead of trying to put it right on top to make it even more off-centered, I'm following the grid. I am centering it right on the grid. So this is going to happen a lot when you dot paint, and that's why I love having a grid, because if I get in off-centered anywhere, I know I can trust the grid to keep me on track. And even if your dots get a little off, once everything is all completed, you won't be able to tell that a dot might be off-centered. Mandalas are very forgiving, especially when using a grid. So we're gonna go step down to our next smallest, our second largest ball stylus, and we're gonna be walking some dots. So just focus on the spacing. You don't want them too close. And as you're walking them, you're applying less paint so you can get a little bit closer. But still you want to keep the distance so they're not touching. So here I dotted towards me, and because this dot's a little bit bigger, I'm gonna actually rotate. I'm actually gonna dot this side down here away from me. I have found that it's a lot easier for me to do this. It's harder to see when I'm painting. It's a little bit harder for me to see and get an accuracy going on this side. So if you are right-handed, it's just the opposite. You'll be working over here. And the same with down here. It would be a lot harder for me to control the dots doing it here. So as I turn, I just go around and do the top and the bottom. And I'm being a little generous with the helping of paint that I'm picking up. It's more of a scooping. That was a little too much scoop, but it's okay. Every scoop's gonna be a little different, and that's part of the practice, practicing your scoops of paint. And now you can see I'm starting to complete the rounds. different. They're all different size dots, but you can't tell, your eye cannot read it unless you get up there with a ruler, which is pretty cool. Okay, so the next dots we're gonna place a big dot here. It's gonna be the copper color. I got a little bubble here. Can you see that right there? Okay, here's a little secret, and you're gonna carry this through the rest of your life. If you just lightly tap it, that bubble on the surface is gonna pop. If you get into mixing paints a lot, you're gonna find you're gonna have a lot of bubbles, and that little trick will help you with the bubble madness. Okay, now we're gonna come in with our green rod, and we're putting that, you know, about that much paint on the tip, and we're trying to get it, we're gonna get it about, oh, let's see what happens. You want to get it close to that blue, and it's just going to be slightly off-centered from this intersection, just slightly a little bit lower than centered. And I'll show you what I mean here in a minute. So the center of the dot is like here, which is just below that intersection. Okay. And if yours is turning out a little bit different than mine, if you hit that intersection, go with what your canvas is doing, not with what I'm doing. I'm just a guide. And if you want to go rogue and do some other sort of design element, you have all the freedom to do so. I'm going to add a little more to this. We come this way too, so you can see it being transferred, the paint. Just cleaning the tool off, and the next color we're going to be using is the gold. And we're also going to be using the large dotting tool. Just wanted to let you know, if you get paint on the edge here, it's going to be really hard to open and close the container. I wanted to get something that was airtight, but like getting paint on here is a little, over time it's gonna be a problem, but you'll probably use the paints up pretty quickly anyways and get new paints. I just needed something to transfer the paints in, so I'm gonna use that large. And I'm just getting right on the edge there. Are we just really happy with the grid? Oops, the grid got erased here. That's okay. I can eyeball it. Okay, so now we're going to step down the dot tool size again with that gold, that blue, the blue dotting tool. And we're going to do that walking dots thing again. This time we're going to do it a little bit different. We're going to step down with 3 dots, big scoops, 1, 2, 3, and you're going to land right about this line here, okay? This is a little more advanced, but I think you guys are ready for it. Okay, we're gonna go 1, 2, 3. This is where it kind of is mesmerizing, where I get to count 1, 2, 3. It's looking a little small. 1, 2, 3. And if you need to go pick up some more paint, if you did not pick up enough for more than 1 dot, feel free to go pick up more. I have a cat hair. I have lots of those. I think every single piece I have painted has a cat hair somewhere on it. Okay. So we went halfway. Now we're going to step down to the next smaller size, which is the white one. Right? Yep, it's the white one. So we're going to do big scoop because we're going to take it the rest of the way. The reason why I do this is if I were to stick with this size, I wouldn't have enough paint on my tool to make it all the way and the dots would get sloppy. So, especially if I'm walking a lot of dots, another example is something like this. Like I took, sorry, it's blurry. I took probably 1 dotting tool is the big size, and then I took like another size and then the smaller size. So 3 different dotting tools. And sometimes I've used up to 4, depending on how many dots I'm walking. So that's just something to think about. Kind of graduating to the next level. I lost where I was. I'm fighting with the cat hair. You might get a cat hair in your package if you buy a kit. I have 3 cats, if you were wondering. And they're all naughty at different times. Looks like I missed one. Okay. So now we're going to come in with our silver. And this is the part where I call the bedazzling part. We're kind of adding in, like this is okay, we can leave it, or we can add a little bit of pizzazz to our piece. And so what I mean by that is I'm adding just a little jewel at the end here. I do this with a lot of my pieces. We're gonna do this here. We're gonna drag a little swipe there, just kind of an introduction to swipes. And we're gonna add a little bit of something here and even here. So the end here, you can leave it as is, or you can go in and just add a little bit more if you want to. This is all up to you. This is your piece, and you can do what you want to do. But for this, I'm gonna do the white the larger size, and I'm just gonna add a little bit of paint on that tip. If you wanna make a larger dot, you can. If you wanna use the smaller dotting tool, you can. I like to do kind of more petite things on the edge here. Let me show you what I mean by this. So like, you know, 3 little dots here, a little swipe here, just kind of adding a little bit, just bedazzling is what I call it. Just something interesting, playful, fun. And as you look at other dotting artists, you can see what they do, and everybody does something a little different. So you're finding your voice in the dots. You're finding your style. And that's the fun part. Okay, so now we're gonna take the copper and we're gonna do that little swipe. And I'm gonna show you how to do this. It's very slow and methodical. I'm gonna get this to focus really well. And I took the, let's see, which one did I take? I'm gonna take the, you can use any dotting tool. They all have the same size. I'm gonna take that size. I'm sorry it's out of focus. My camera is a butt head. Okay, but we're gonna take that and we're just gently gonna dip and pull. So we're not putting a lot of paint on the tip. See if I can get this to really focus good. There we go. So it's not a really fast kind of thing. You're gonna set your tool down. You're gonna touch the canvas and you're gonna drag it really slowly right up that line. And if you can apply the same amount of paint to each one and apply the same speed, you'll get just about the same length. The slower typically you pull on your tool, the longer your swipe is going to be. It kind of ended right about the same spot. Let me show you what happens if you put too much paint on. I'm really scooping the paint up. Let me show you. I'm really going crazy here. Like I got a lot of paint there. So we went crazy far with that, right? Okay, it does bug me. I'm gonna have to fix that. Easy peasy. Okay. And then I also want to show you what happens if you swipe really fast. I'm going to clean my tool off here. Okay, so, and it doesn't matter how fast you swipe. What matters is you're consistent. So if you're swiping fast, swipe fast for all of them. If you're using a lot of paint, use a lot of paint for all of them. That's our goal. Oops, that was way too fast. But it probably would have ended about the same, but it just went crazy. Okay, so I'm gonna come back here. Still a little damp. Probably should wait till it's more dry. I went faster there because I have more paint on my tool. You kind of get better at it as you go. So I'm going to take my large green size and I'm just going to apply it sort of right about here. I'm going to add a little bit more paint. So visually it feels a little more connected in this area. You don't have to do this part, but if you want to, you can. And I'm sort of aiming for like right here. So there's this gap here in the pencil lines. I'm kind of aiming for like right there. It might be different on yours. Just find a spot on your grid and aim for the same spot. If you follow me on Patreon, I do have tutorials that I do. They're more for intermediate and expert level. I do have a couple of tutorials, like very step-by-step tutorials for pieces that are a little more complicated. So if you find that you are loving dotting and want to keep going, I definitely encourage you to keep practicing. You can make this same one over. And I'm going to try to put out some more videos like this that will kind of graduate you to something a little more at this level. Like this is, I would say, intermediate. All right, the next color, we're going to do the berry. And we're going to use the blue size, the larger blue size. So we're just going to add on either side of that. In my tutorials that I do have a lot of different tool sets that I've used over the years. There is a conversion chart. I think my friend, my friend Erin Riley has one on her Etsy store. It's like $5, but she has like all the most popular tools, including all the ones that I use, and she converts them into the same sizes as these. So I will link that also in the description of this video. Okay, this is the purple size. And again, wherever you're going to put this, be consistent on the grid. So I'm going to apply it right about here, right about there. We're just hugging it. We're not getting terribly close. We're just kind of filling in that spot. Okay. So paying attention to the grid. And I might be going a little faster, but you can take as much time as you need. So what I recommend is letting this dry at least 24 hours. Once it's all dry, completely dry, you can come in with your Q-tip and your water and you can kind of clean all the lines up. So once everything is completely dry and you're ready to varnish, you shake it up really well and you spray it about 10 to 12 inches away from your canvas and do a light coat, and you let it dry. It dries in 15 minutes and then you can actually pick it up and put it wherever you want after about 2 hours. I hope you have enjoyed this video. If you have any thoughts, please leave them in the comments. And any of the things that I mentioned here today, I will link in the description of this video. And also, if you are interested and haven't purchased this mandala kit yet, that is also linked in the video. Thanks and happy dotting!